My name is Brandon Fernandez, Assistant Professor in Mathematics at St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa, and I am the coordinator for this webinar. Keynote speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Venkatesh Naik, Program Head of the Access to Information Program, CHRI, New Delhi. The moderator for today's webinar is Mr. Dolphy D'Souza, Project Lead, CHRI, Mumbai City Co-Group. The co-moderator for today's webinar is Mrs. Megha Gupta, Project Associate, CHRI Mumbai. Today's webinar is hosted by Dr. Maria AAR Fonseca, Principal of St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa, and Dr. Father Bolmex Fidelis Pereira, Assistant Professor in Botany at St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, just write them to the chat. We will have a question and answer session at the end to answer your questions. Also, a quick reminder to mute yourself and switch off the camera on your device. A link to feedback form will be shared towards the end of the webinar. I feel privileged to invite the respected principal, Dr. Maria AAR Fonseca of St. Joseph Vaz College to welcome and address the audience present for the webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning to all. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar titled Use Rights of Information for Improving Governance. This webinar is held in association with Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. I welcome all the students, teachers, principals, and others who have taken their time off in gaining more information on right to information. I'm happy to welcome our key speaker, Mr. Venkatesh Naik, the program head of the Access to Information program. He is presently a key public training resource on right to information across South Asia, Africa, and Caribbean. Welcome you, sir. I also welcome Mr. Dolphy D'Souza, the moderator of today's webinar. He is a project lead of Commonwealth Human Rights Mumbai. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, sir, Mr. Venkatesh and Dolphy, sir, for sparing your precious time and sharing your valuable information to all our participants. Thank you in advance for all those who are participating today. Hope you have a wonderful hearing, one and all, and a happy Goa Revolution Day to all Goans. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Father Bolmex Pereira. Today, Goa celebrates 75th Goa Revolution Day. And on this day, we remember that revolutions are possible only when we know, when we have the knowledge, when we have the information. And that is why at St. Joseph Vaz College, we thought of coming out with this webinar where we know, our students know, our teachers know, and all the people in general know about RTI, Right to Information Act 2005. And that is when we connected with Mr. Linus de Lima, who is also part of police reforms, Dolphy D'Souza and Megha Gupta and the CHRI team from Mumbai. And it is a pleasure that today we are going to have something solid so that the revolution, or exactly we understand what revolution is. Just to give a short brief about the Revolution Day, it was in 1946, month of June, that Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia and our very own son of the soil from Asolna village, Dr. Julian de Menezes, both of them came together and the first spark of revolution was started. revolution to free us from the Portuguese rule. And of course, that was the first Revolution Day. And today, when we are at the 75th Goa Revolution Day, perhaps we need many types of revolutions to bring a change in the way we live, in the way we see things, in the way we plan, in the way we govern. So that's why today's webinar is titled Use of RTI in Improving the Governance. And for this, we have none other than Mr. Venkatesh Nayak, who is the authority in RTI. Most of the things that we come to know today are to be used. They are not just for the sake of sharing or just for attending the webinar. We expect at St. Joseph Vaz College and so also at CHRI, they expect that this webinar today helps each of the participants to use this RTI Act to the best of our capability and to bring out that change, especially in the governance. So we are thankful to Mr. Venkatesh Nayak for being with us today, and he will be sharing a lot of knowledge with us. Any questions that we have, of course, welcome. And they will be answered at the end of the session. As our coordinator has already said, you can type your questions in the chat box. We will attend to them. And also the e-certificate that is supposed to be sent across to you. At the end, you have to give your feedback and register for it. We will be sharing the link as the session comes towards the end. So once again, we are grateful to Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative for being with us today. Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh Nayak. Thank you, Mr. Dolphy D'Souza. Thank you, Ms. Megha Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Linus. He's our friend and a great inspiration. So from here, CHRI Mumbai will take over. Once again, thank you and welcome for this webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Maria Fonseca, Principal, Dr. Father Paul Marks and Brendan for the opening remarks. Welcome students and activists from Goa who are part of this particular session. And may I request Megha to introduce the speaker for the program.
Good morning. So first I will introduce our moderator for the day, Dolphy D'Souza. Dolphy is currently CHRI Mumbai's project lead, where he oversees our City Core Group initiative, which is a network of civil society organizations, lawyers, and activists focused on mobilizing to respond to issues of violence against women and children, including domestic violence. He has spearheaded networking with state and educational institutions and local communities to generate awareness on legal rights vis-a-vis policing. Dolphy regularly conducts legal awareness sessions as a resource person, and he's always been a people's person. He strongly believes that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and it's a pleasure to work with him. I will next introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Venkatesh Nayak, and it's difficult to actually summarize someone's work over 2 decades in 4 lines, but I hope I do justice to the work that Mr. Venkatesh has done on the issue of RTI. So he is currently the program head of Access to Information CHRI. He has completed his master's and MPhil degree in history from JNU, where he was also a doctoral research fellow. He has been with CHRI since 2000. Mr. Venkatesh Nayak is a seasoned RTI activist with a great body of work at the national and international level. He has designed and conducted training programs for implementing RTI Act 2005 for various state governments in India. He has provided technical support in drafting or reforming laws, as well as conducted workshops for governments and CSOs in Bangladesh, Canada, Fiji, Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Malta, Maldives, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, and Zambia. He's also a founder trustee of Whistleblowers International Network, which is a global network of advocates for whistleblower protection. Mr. Nayak's stellar academic and practical contributions continue to expand the scope of transparency regime in India. And we're so thankful to have him here with us today. I would also like to introduce Mr. Linus de Lima, who actually connected us to Dr. Father Bolmax and helped us in having this program today. Mr. Linus is a part of CHRI initiated City Code Group as well as Police Reforms Watch. He's also a paralegal volunteer trained by the District Legal Services Authority. He is also the paralegal volunteer trained by the DLSA Authority, Mumbai Suburban. He has also used the RTI extensively by filing over hundreds of RTI applications. Professionally, he's an insurance and financial advisor. He is also a very helpful and concerned and committed citizen. Linus has connected us to several schools and institutions in Mumbai in organizing better policing campaigns. Without him, this program would not have happened. So we're very grateful to him. I now hand it over to Dolphy to start the session. Thank you.
And basically with the focus earlier in terms of anti-human trafficking work. But one of the best things is she's one of my best colleagues in terms of driving the agenda in Mumbai on the citizen initiative, CHRI's initiative of City Code Group. Welcome Megha for this coordination program. And before I hand over the program over to my colleague Venkatesh Nayak. Today, this morning, I got a message on my WhatsApp saying that under this regime, RTI has become a toothless wonder. And I want to comment here, my friends and students, that it's a wonder and it can be a thunderous wonder if you use it. And it's very, very important for us that Venkatesh, who's a very dear colleague of mine and a good friend of mine and somebody who is an authority on RTI, will share also with you in terms of how we can, by using RTI, improve governance. Today is a very auspicious day, Goa Revolution Day. And revolutions or change doesn't happen overnight. There are no Maggi noodles in terms of change. We need to work hard, consistently. And that's what Venkat, my colleague, has been doing. And see the transformation that takes place. So that's a challenge. And I think Venkat today is going to challenge all of us in terms of how creatively we can use it and with his experiences, which he shares with us as part of this particular today's campaign. Thank you, Linus, once again for connecting us to Dr. Father Bolmax and St. Joseph's College, because it's one of those initiatives which will go a long way in terms of building awakened RTI users to improve governance. Venkat, over to you.
Thank you, Dolphy. Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Lovely. That's great. Sometimes there is a bit of a problem with the connectivity. I would like to, before I formally begin, I would like to thank my colleague Megha for giving such a glowing introduction. And it always sounds nice to hear it from somebody much younger, to get a feel of the kind of work that one has done. So thank you very much for that. So let me begin my formal presentation. I'll probably talk for about 20 to 30 minutes and then I will stop and we can have more of an interaction because we have very limited time available on our hands. So first and foremost, Reverend Father Dr. Bolmax Pereira, Mrs. Fonseca, Assistant Professor Mr. Brandon Fernandez, my colleagues at CHRI, Dolphy and Megha, and my compatriot in the struggle for transparency, Linus. Other faculty members of St. Joseph's Vaz College, and students and participants. It's a privilege for me to be addressing you on this occasion for a variety of reasons. One, of course, has already been mentioned. It's Goa Revolution Day. I will talk about revolution after I express some of my personal feelings here as part of the opening remarks, and then we'll straight away dive into the whole idea of revolution and what RTI is doing. But before that, the reason why I feel very privileged is because I don't think many of you know that this is the first event that I am actually speaking at on the issue of right to information in Goa. So far, I've been to Goa multiple times for both personal reasons and for work, but it's never been related to right to information. So it's actually a privilege. So thank you very much, Linus, Dolphy, Megha, and faculty members and students of St. Joseph's College for giving me this wonderful opportunity for addressing you. There is a very good reason why I haven't been to Goa to say anything about right to information, even though I've been working in this area for now, I think this is my 17th year. The reason is Goa actually is the Janam Bhumi of RTI. Not many people remember this. Goa was the first state, along with Tamil Nadu, to have enacted a law to guarantee access to information held by the state government to the people living in those two states, Goa and Tamil Nadu, in 1997. This was even before we had a national law on right to information, about which we will talk in the course of my presentation and during the discussion. Noted stalwarts in your environmental movement, in your movement against corruption, in your movement against child labor, in your movement to reform governance, in your movement to make governance more people-oriented, consultative, and participatory. People like Claude Alvarez, Albertina Almeida, a whole range of people have actually been the forerunners of the RTI movement in Goa. And this has happened even before I started work. I was just a student at the Jawaharlal Nehru University when the right to information movement in Goa began. It's because of the wanting to know what is it that government does, which it does not want to tell us most of the time. What is there in their files? How are they spending the money that we pay as taxpayers? Why are things going wrong? Why is so much of deforestation happening? Why is so much of illegal iron ore mining happening here? Why are children who should be in school actually are being trafficked, or they are being employed in jobs which adults should be doing? So these were the questions which people in Goa asked and wanted to know answers. And when the answers were not forthcoming easily, they said, no, we need to have a law that guarantees us the right to seek and obtain information in Goa. So you are literally the trailblazers for the whole country. So you must cherish that idea. You must feel pride in that part of history that you have been the forerunners of the right to information movement in India. Not much is talked about this. We only get to hear about people's movements in other parts of the country. The most unfortunate part is the people's movement for a right to information law in Goa has actually not been adequately documented and popularized. It's high time somebody did that. And I'm happy to work with anybody who is willing to do that archival collection of the consciousness and the historicity of the RTI movement in Goa. Now let's come to the whole idea of revolution. This is the other reason why I felt very privileged to be addressing you on the issue of right to information. Quite rightly, Dolphy pointed out that every now and then, media or public intellectuals or experts happily pen what is called the obituary or the death note of RTI. Because you see, the national RTI law has been in place since 2005. There are all kinds of challenges for getting access to information. Not everybody gets information easily. And when there are more and more such stories reported in the media in a year, people start writing obituaries. Oh, RTI is dead. Oh, RTI is toothless. Oh, RTI is not helpful. Well, I don't know how many of these people who actually pontificate on the status of RTI have actually used RTI in their lives, and for what reasons and with what effect. We don't know. But let's leave that aside. Let's not go beyond that. I want to share my screen with you to tell you a story of the impact of RTI. I hope my screen is visible now. This is a story of a 9-year-old boy. And it's, of course, from 2015. So let's say now we are 6 years down the line. So he's all of 15 years old. His name is Manoj. When the story happened, he was studying in class 4, not in Mumbai, not in elite schools like Delhi Public School in Delhi or in Bangalore or in other places, nor in fantastic schools with great names. He was studying in a government primary school in a remote village in Nizamabad district of Telangana. He was he belonged to a family of BD workers, where the family members, the adults, and then they roll it into BDs, and then they hand it over to the manufacturers of, the packed BDs, which are then sold for people who would like to have a puff. It's a very poorly paying job. So he comes from that family. But the parents had the vision to send this boy to school. They could not afford to send him to a private school where education would be expensive. They sent him to a government primary school where access to education up to the age of 14 is free for every child. But then there are expenses that are involved, even in government primary schools, which families have to bear. Everything is not free. Uniforms, I don't think, come free of cost. Perhaps some of their notebooks and other kinds of stationery that they need to use for their studies don't come free. The families very often who are in such poor conditions, impoverished conditions, they're not able to afford these costs either. So the government across the country, through the labor departments, have a scheme of paying scholarships to such school children. And how large is the scholarship amount? 1,000 rupees per year. So you can divide that by 12 months and you will see it is less than 100 rupees per month per student that the government pays. So technically, these children of BD workers who are studying in the school were supposed to get this scholarship, but they did not get a scholarship at all for a particular academic year, 2011 to 12. So what did this boy do? He didn't sit quiet. He didn't say, like many other people in India do, oh, what do we do? It's our fate. This is how systems are. We are poor. Nobody takes care of us. Government has forgotten us. Somehow Manoj got to know that there is something called right to information law, which he can use to remind the government that children like Manoj and his kind of poor families continue to exist in this country. I don't know the whole story of where he learned the knowledge, where he got this understanding of right to information, but he somehow learned it. So he filed an RTI application formally seeking information from the labor welfare department saying that we've not got this fellowship. So can you tell us how much amount you are supposed to send us to pay scholarships to children who are eligible in our school? Why has it not been sent? When will it be sent at all? And if they do not want to send this scholarship, because sometimes there are budget cuts, so the department may not have funds to pay these scholarships despite the scheme being existing in place. So he said, if you are not planning to send these scholarship amounts, can you tell us why? And here you can see on your screen, he wrote this RTI application at the age of 9 in Telugu and he submitted it. Now, what was the impact of this? The impact was 10 of the 15 students who were supposed to get this scholarship were actually informed by the labeled welfare department saying that the scholarships are being paid. There was some slight delay, but we are crediting this amount in the Union Bank of India in a branch in Hyderabad, and very soon the amount will be issued to the headmaster of this primary school as soon as he submits the list of students who are eligible for receiving this scholarship. Now, I really want to ask people who write obituaries to the RTI saying RTI is dead, RTI is toothless, RTI is legless, RTI is headless, RTI, any organ that comes to their mind, they will say this organ is not functioning as far as RTI Act is concerned. I simply want to ask them, okay, what do you make of the experience of young Manoj? System responded to him. Why? Because Manoj was not old enough, knowledgeable enough like you, century of the RTI. All that he did was he learned about the RTI Act and he made use of it. And what happened? There was a revolutionary impact. If he had not written this RTI application asking why the scholarships were not coming, we don't know for how long the students would have been denied access to these scholarships. The moment he writes it, the department wakes up and realizes that it is under a duty to pay these scholarships that has not been done. Somebody is asking questions, and this somebody is not a busybody. This somebody is a student whose education depends on this scholarship. So we have a duty to respond to this person, and they write back. If this is not revolutionary change, what else is in a democratic setup? Revolution is not about taking guns and resorting to violence.
Venkat, you're echoing.
There is a time and place things also. Even the human rights discourse on this planet recognizes and it not me. Okay. Now I have my mic on and I'll switch off my video then. I hope this is better. Dolphy, I hope it's not echoing now.
If you could switch off your video, maybe you'd be much more sharper.
I'm having a bit of a connectivity problem today.
Yeah.
So I got disconnected, but I hope now I'm audible.
Sure.
Lovely. Okay.
We can hear you now. Yeah.
So let me continue. So young Manoj showed something that most adults would not even want to think about. They will only, a large number of them would be very happy to sit and drink drink a cup of tea and have a conversation with their friends, lamenting the fact that government does not work in our country. Nothing works. कुछ काम नहीं करता. नेता लोग अपने अपने चीजों को देखते रहते हैं, अपनी कुर्सी बनाए रखने के लिए काम करते हैं. The rich like Ambanis and Adanis are able to get whatever they want to be done from the government because they've got money and influence. We are all at Bhagwan Bharose, God's mercy. But Manoj is not amongst those people. Manoj is somebody who realizes that there is a law which puts the relationship between him as a citizen of this country and the government of the country on an even platform, where just because Manoj is a citizen of this country, he can demand answers from the government and expect to get that under a law called the Right to Information Act. That is the empowering nature of right to information. Now, I don't know how many of you are students of political science, but there are 3 thinkers who are remembered in the history of the emergence of political science as a subject matter of study, particularly 18th century onwards, for their contribution. This is their very basic contribution. One is Thomas Hobbes, the other is John Locke, and the third is Rousseau. I want to talk about a statement which John Locke made way back, about 300 years ago. He said the purpose of any law that is passed by Parliament must be to empower citizens. Why? Because the government and its agencies have a monopoly over the use of force. Supposing, let us say, and the biggest and the most glaring example of how the use of force occurred is before all of us. Goa is still going through a lockdown. How does the police deal with people who are violating the COVID lockdown guidelines and norms by venturing out on the streets for non-essential tasks? They use their lathis, they use their danda. Citizens can't use a danda and beat the police back because that would be unlawful. So there is a power imbalance between those who are in government and people like us who are governed. So when Parliament makes laws, such laws should empower people more and more, because in a democracy, you can't have this unequal balance of power. Why? Because people who are in positions of power are not there because they are entitled to it. They are there because we have elected them and put them there. So they have to exercise that power for our benefit, not for their benefit, or not in a whimsical manner. What RTI does is, it gives us a tool, not a weapon. Because I don't like the language of weapons, because it's the language of violence. In a democracy, there should not be any place for violence. It's a tool, it's a constructive tool to question government, to question the administration about everything that they're doing. Get information that is there in their records. And demand accountability. Why all of this? Demanding accountability. Explain to us why you did this, why you did not do that. It's our right as citizens to ask this question. Why so? For the simple reason that the Constitution of India says very clearly that this government at the state level, central level, administration at the district level or panchayat level, all of them run solely for the purpose and the welfare and the benefit of people like you and I. Government does not and should not be run for the benefit of people who are politicians or who are in power, or babus and officials who are sitting in government offices, or rich industrialists. It should run for all of us, not just for them, not for the powerful. In order to make the government run for all of us and work for all of us, the right to information is a tool, and it's been used fantastically over the last 17 years by millions and millions of people across the country. How popular is this law? I'll give you some statistics. Every hour, we have estimated between 500 to 600 RTI applications get filed across the country, some part of the country or the other. Every day, the average is 13,500 RTI applications across the country. In a year, our estimate is between 50 to 55 lakh RTI applications go to various levels of government across the country. People wanting to know not just information about themselves. Like, for example, Manoj's case was, why am I not getting my scholarship? Why are my friends in my class not getting scholarships? Fair enough. That is one kind of use of RTI. Another kind of use of RTI is people sitting in Goa wanting to know what is the plan for redeveloping what is called Central Vista in New Delhi. You know that road between Rashtrapati Bhavan and India Gate? That Rajpath is actually called Central Vista. So what is the plan for redeveloping it? You have a right to know. Why? Reason is very simple. That redevelopment plan, even though it is happening because some people in power want it to happen, the money that is being used is the money that you and I pay as taxpayers. You may ask me, but I don't pay income tax. So how am I a taxpayer? Well, every time you go to a restaurant and order food, they give you a bill at the end of it. So when you look at the bottom of the bill, in addition to the cost price of the food that you order, there is something mentioned as GST so and so percentage. So when you pay that GST as part of the food bill, you become a taxpayer. So it is that money, a tiny amount of money, it could be 5 rupees, it could be 10 rupees, it could be 20 rupees. But when people like you and I keep paying that every time we buy a commodity in a shop or at the market, or when we avail a service, like banking services also are charged GST. So whenever we avail these services, those small amounts of money become hundreds of thousands of crores of rupees in the government's treasury. It is that money which is used for building the central vista. So we have a right to ask that question. Why it is our money? This is not an NGO's agenda which I am sharing with you. This is exactly the demand that people in Goa made, that people in Maharashtra made, people in Rajasthan made, people in Jammu and Kashmir made, people in Delhi made, people in Karnataka made, to have a right to information law that would guarantee them answers when they ask for this kind of information. So in 2005, when Parliament passed this right to information law, all that it did was it put together a framework for people to ask information and for government to give information. Because unless these procedures are clarified, you will not know how to approach a government office for seeking information, and government officers will not know how to respond to you, what kinds of information should be given legitimately and what can be refused lawfully. All of these matters are part of the Right to Information Act. Now, why was this law brought in? I have already explained the background, the theoretical background. There is also a legal background. The legal background is simply this. Way back in 1975, Supreme Court of India said that because we are a democracy, government has to act responsibly. And to act responsibly, one of the things that government needs to do is tell people what it is doing, or what it is supposed to be doing, or what it has not done. This is called people's right to know. People's right to know what the administration is doing in their name, for them, using the money that they pay as taxpayers. Then way back in the 1980s, in another case, Supreme Court said, people have a right to know what is happening with their environment. So in 1975, they said people's right to know is part of the people's fundamental right to speak freely, express themselves freely. Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, right to freedom of speech and expression. In the 1980s, Supreme Court said the people's right to know is part of the right to life. You won't be able to have or enjoy the right to life in a proper manner, in a dignified manner, in a healthy manner, unless you have access to information about what is happening with the environment. So the right to information, if you look up the Constitution of India, the list of fundamental rights that is given in Part 3 of the Constitution, you will not find a reference to RTI anywhere. But because the Supreme Court has said on multiple occasions that people's right to know is part of the right to life, which is mentioned in the Constitution. People's right to know is part of the right to freedom of speech and expression, which is mentioned in the Constitution. According to our constitutional scheme of things, when the Supreme Court declares the law like this, it becomes a law of the land, even though it may not be specifically written into the Constitution. It is called deemed fundamental right. It is assumed, it is presumed, it is deemed, it is understood, it is implied that right to information is part of the right to freedom of speech and expression, and it is part of the right to life. So what RTI does is it gives a methodology for exercising this right for all of us who are citizens of India. There are two processes for accessing information from government agencies. One process is for the government to tell people voluntarily a whole range of things about itself. How is it structured? What is the name of the department? How many officers are working in the department? What are their names? How much salary are they paid every month? Yeah. What are their powers and duties? What are their responsibilities? What rules, regulations, and instructions do they use in the context of their work? What kinds of subsidy programs are they implementing? How much money do they get sanctioned in the budget every year, and how have they spent it? All these details government agencies are required to tell you on their own. All other information, the law says you can put in an RTI application and ask for it. Within 30 days, you must get a response. Either the office will tell you, pay this much photocopy charges, because the information that you are asking will be in the form of files, hard paper, paper-based files. So you will not get the original because government has to use them. So they will make photocopies and they will give it to you at the rate of 2 rupees per page. So they have to tell you if the information is fit to be disclosed, how much money you have to pay and take the information. If the information is not fit for disclosure, which means more harm will be caused by sharing that information, even that they have to tell you within 30 days. Now, what are these reasons why government can lawfully, legitimately refuse to give you access to information? Even that is written in the RTI Act itself. So the process of giving and the basis for deciding not to give information, all of that is determined in the RTI Act itself. So if you ask today, can you tell us how many soldiers are deployed on our border with Pakistan? Where all are they located? What all kinds of weapons do they have? How much ammunition do they have? You have every right to ask that information. 2 reasons. Number one, they are deployed there not because they want to have a gala time in Kashmir, in the mountains, and therefore they are all there. No, they are there to guard our frontiers. Why? Otherwise, there is a possibility that enemies and aliens might attack us. So their deployment is in the public interest. It is for our security that they are deployed there. So we have a right to know. Deploying soldiers on the borders costs money. They have to be paid salaries, they have to be given uniforms, they have to be given arms, they have to be given ammunition, they have to be fed, they have to be clothed. A whole range of things. It costs money. Where is all the money coming from? Soldiers are not paying for all of that from their pockets. It's people like you and I who are paying taxes. That money is pulled together and some portion of that is spent on the soldiers. Therefore, also we have a right to ask. So no harm in asking this information. But question is, will there be any harm in disclosing that information to people? How many soldiers are deployed? How much ammunition do they have? Where all are the howitzer guns, put up? Where all the artillery guns are put up? Where all the tanks are located? If this kind of information is disclosed, even though we have a right to know, it can be misused by the enemy. Because once we get to know, there is no way of preventing it from coming out in the public domain. And then the enemies might get to know about it. So therefore, this kind of information, even though you have a right to ask and demand to know, that information, the law says, need not be disclosed because transparency will cause more harm. So the entire RTI Act is about what is the harm of disclosing government-held information. If there is no harm, it must be disclosed. If there is likely to be harm and that harm is recognized in the RTI Act, then that information will not be disclosed. All of these things you must be told within 30 days. If you want information about, let's say, a friend of yours who's just been picked up by the police from the middle of the street, they've taken him somewhere, you don't know where he is, family is desperate looking for him. So when you ask the police for that information, they can't make you wait for 30 days. The law says that information concerning that person's life and liberty must be given within 48 hours. Supposing you don't get the information, then what happens? The law provides a remedy. It provides some grievance redressal mechanism where you can go to the higher officer in the same department and say, I did not get this information, or I am not happy with the information that this officer gave me. So please decide this case in my favor. And that is called an appeal process. The first appeal process, which is within that department. That must be completed within 45 days. Supposing you are not happy with the outcome of that process also, then you can go to what is called the Information Commission. In Goa, if you wanted information from your government agencies in Goa, but you did not get it, or you are not happy with the kind of information that you got, you go to the Goa State Information Commission. Every state has its own information commission. If you wanted information from central government but did not get it, or from, let's say, a public sector bank like State Bank of India or Canara Bank or Union Bank of India, you didn't get it because they are all under the state government, you can go to the Central Information Commission. And there, the commission has a duty to hear you, look at your grievance, examine your RTI application, examine the response that the government agency gave. Or if the government agency did not give you any response at all to your RTI application, then they can ask them. You were supposed to give a response. You can't sit quiet. The law does not permit any government agency to sit quietly on an RTI application endlessly. You either have to say, take this, give me this much of fees, take the information, or you have to be told why that information can't be given. And the why bit has to be justified for reasons given in the RTI Act itself. So if you have not done either, then the commission can ask the government department to justify why that information was not given. And the most important thing is you don't have to explain reasons for asking information. Why do you want the information is immaterial. The only reason why you want the information is because you are a citizen of this country. And when I say citizen, it means anybody of any age, so long as they can write an RTI application. Manoj was just 9 years old. You could even be 90. You don't have to be an adult. You don't have to be a person of who is eligible to vote for seeking information on the RTI. Just because you're a citizen of India is enough. You can ask for information. That is the beauty of the RTI Act. People are using it in novel ways. They're using it to unearth corruption in a range of government implemented schemes. It could be the Rural Employment Guarantee Program. It could be the Awas Yojana program, where housing assistance is provided to people. It could be in the Watershed Development Program. It could be in the distribution of disability certificates to people with disabilities, ineligible people getting disability certificates. Even these people are using RTI to ask, how did you give it to them when they don't have any disability? People who are supposed to get rations like wheat, rice, sugar, kerosene, maybe even dal from the ration shops, they don't get the quota. Despite the government saying we've released so many millions of tons of food grains to be distributed through the ration shops. If you don't get it, you can use RTI to find out why is the stock not coming to our ration shop. You can even use RTI to ask, why is it that my primary healthcare center in the village where I live has not got a single dose of the COVID vaccine for the last 3 weeks? It's your right to ask. It is the government's duty to respond. Believe me, friends, RTI is not dying. There will be challenges to giving information because the attitude of government officers towards this law is very slowly changing, but it is changing for sure. You might be surprised to know, normally, despite being an RTI activist, I don't file more than 30 to 40 RTI applications in any given year. I am not one of those people who file hundreds and thousands of RTI applications to the government because I know that I will not be able to make use of all that information that I get. I will only ask for that information which I can analyze and disseminate using the amount of time that I have. But last year, during the pandemic, I filed the highest number of RTI applications in any given year. I filed more than 60. This year, I've already crossed 60. Why? Because these are difficult times when government needs to be much more transparent, but it is not being so. The funniest thing that I read yesterday in one of the newspapers is somebody filed an RTI asking the health department, can you tell us how many doses of COVID vaccine, Covishield and Covax, have you sent to various private hospitals across the country? Government is saying we don't have the data. Array, how is that possible? The manufacturers of these vaccines have a duty to give this information to government. Or if they don't give it, government has a duty to collect that information from them. Why? Because there is such a big confusion about how much vaccine is available and when will it be available for whom. Even though there are plans which say frontline workers will get priority, 45 and above will get priority, people with morbidities will get priority. Now they are saying 18 plus will get priority, but where are the vaccines? Everything is on paper. But people are asking. People are not stopped. And even worse, people have been physically attacked for seeking information. hundreds of cases since 2005. But that has not deterred people. Year after year after year, the number of RTI applications is just increasing. It's not reducing across the country. The unfortunate part is not enough women are using RTI because we haven't made the effort to train more and more women to use RTI. Not enough young people are using RTI. Not enough people living in villages are using RTI. That is why this has not really grown into a people's movement yet. When I say 50 to 55 lakh people use RTI in a given year across the country, we are the largest users of RTI anywhere in the world. There are about 128 countries with such laws. Nowhere else in the world is RTI used so much as it is used in India. But when you compare it with the size of our population, so far, over the last 17 years, there have been only 3.3 crore RTI applications that have gone to the country, have gone to various government agencies. What is the size of our population? We are about 137 crores. Out of that, let us say we take just about 100 crores of people who are 18 and above, because this is the number of people who are eligible to cast their vote in the elections. We have not even reached 1% of the population which is using RTI even after 17 years. So it's better not to write obituaries of the RTI Act, but actually put that effort to educate more and more people about the RTI procedures. So in that context, I would like to really appreciate and congratulate the faculty and the management of St. Joseph's Vaz College of Goa for putting together this event. I hope this will be the first event where we've come together to get a kind of a capsule understanding of RTI, but hopefully in the coming weeks, coming months, we can have more extensive and in-depth skill building sessions, what we call skill development sessions about how to draft RTIs. Somebody put in a question in the box. Can we ask questions starting with why, what, why not, how in an RTI application? I will answer this, of course, during the question answer session, but the training program, which will be in-depth, will actually train you into seeking the same information without using questions. It's possible. So I would like to end my presentation here by congratulating you once more. You see, ultimately, the more and more you engage with government, democracy will remain strong. The less and less you engage with government, accountability will reduce, transparency will reduce, corruption will increase. Those kinds of laws like muscles. You either use it or you lose it. If you don't use right to information law, there will be no duty on government to give you information. The more you use it, the more pressure builds up on government to become transparent. So my humble request to all of you is, do make the effort to learn more and more about RTI. I'm just one of the many resource persons across the country who can teach you about RTI. I'm not the only guy. There are many men and women, young and old, who have used RTI fantastically and they can train you. There are many such people in Goa itself. Get in touch with them. Learn how to use RTI and use some of your spare time to engage with government. Because like I said, the more you engage, the better it is for the quality of our democracy. And you will have something much more interesting to talk to your friends over a bottle of Feni or over a cup of tea. Rather than simply say, kuch nahi hota hai, you can say, maine ye karke dikhaya. Don't you think that is more exciting than simply saying, nothing works? Well, people have made the system work. Use RTI, make the system work. That is how governance can actually be improved. If you just leave it to our elected politicians, things are not going to improve much. We have seen that over the last 75 years now. Left to themselves, things are not going to improve much. They will, but very slowly. But the more people get engaged in government, in the governance processes, the chances of reform happening, improvement happening will get much better. That's all I wanted to say in my presentation. I will stop here. Over to you now. I suppose we can have some time for question answers. I'll stop here.
Thanks, Venkat. It's always a pleasure to be inspired by your thoughts on this subject, your study on this subject and your work. Before we open house, I like to open house questions. I'd like to also thank my other colleague who's in the background, Ajit Mishra of IT, who takes care of all the backroom work, including recordings and all. Thank you, Ajit, so much.
Thank you, sir.
For taking so much of responsibility in terms of making things and our life easier. Okay, thank you, Ajit. And taking over from there, Venkat, is it possible, maybe based on your experiences, maybe to share one or two case studies very briefly in terms of, I'm not saying success, but to give and inspire our participants that so many things are possible, the good and the bad, basically. If you could share something like that for a few minutes, and then we open up for questions.
Yes, of course. Let me show you what people can do using RTI. And these are stories from people whom, which you probably would never hear anywhere in the media. Because these stories are not big enough, newsworthy enough for the media to report on. And it is those kinds of stories I want to show you, primarily because the purpose of doing this presentation is to show that yes, this is possible. Ye mumkin hai. Yeah, which what we say is this is doable and this is practical, and that's what I want to share with you. So let me put my screen up. Okay, so I have put up my PowerPoint presentation here. Is it visible on your screen? It says RTI in aid of people's right to health.
Yes.
Okay, now let me see if I can make it a full screen. Yes, now it's visible. Now there is a story from Gujarat. This is several years ago. Normal times. There's one gentleman called Ghulam Bhai who lived in a remote corner of Gujarat in one of the border districts called Panchmahals. Now his village is so tiny, just a few families, I think less than 100 families. They don't have a primary healthcare center. So every village will not have a primary health center because we don't have the resources yet to set up primary health centers. Thankfully, COVID pandemic has actually opened the eyes of government to the necessity of opening such primary health centers wherever possible in order to cater to rural areas. But anyway, let's not get into that. So Boru does not have a primary health center. Instead, the primary health center is located in another village called Jantral, which is about 60 kilometers away from Boru.
Your voice.
So people living in Boru are entitled to get treatment and medicines at this primary health center in Jantral. Sorry, the connectivity is a bit of a problem here. There's no way I can help it. I hope this is
it's clear.
Audible now? Am I audible now?
Yeah, audible now. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Yes. So the primary health center is there. They're supposed to provide health services to people living in Boru. People living in Boru never got these health services for a very long time. Year after year after year, serious problems. So if you wanted any medicines, you had to go to the primary health center. If there were pregnant women who were about to deliver a child, then they would have to be carried to the primary health center. Even the roads are in very bad shape. I have been to this village myself and I know how bad it is. In summers, it is okay, but in winters, because there is no Pakka road, no tar macadamized road, it just becomes a pool of slush all the way from Boru to Jantral. You will have to wade water and mud to reach the primary health center. And because of which, this poor access, either people died or because they did not get medicines in a timely manner, or they simply survived on their own. Their natural immunity dealt with their illness eventually, and they became better. So Ghulam Bhai didn't know what to do about this. Now, my organization actually was working in this district to teach a whole range of laws. What is called legal literacy program is what we had, drawn up. to teach people belonging to the most vulnerable and disadvantaged segments of society, teach them various kinds of laws, labor laws, laws relating to violence against women, non-exploitation of children, laws relating to wages, a whole range of laws. One of the laws that we also taught them was about RTI. So once Ghulam Bhai attended our RTI workshop, learned how to do RTI applications and all of that, he decided to use the RTI Act to find out why is this poor state of affairs happening in the primary health center. So he sent an RTI application to the health center and sought 2 or 3 kinds of information. The first one was, what is the total number of health workers in the health center? What are their roles and responsibilities? Are they required to come to Boru? If so, how often in a week? What kinds of services are they supposed to provide? Are they required to go from door to door to distribute medicines? Or are they required to only sit in one central place in the village and then expect people to walk up to them, explain their illnesses, and then collect the medicines? So what is their responsibility? These are only the things which Ghulam Bhai asked. Now the fun part is, even though Boru does not have a primary health center, Boru has a village post office. So he was able to go to the village post office and send his RTI application by post. He did not have to walk up all the way to the primary health center to submit his RTI application. So that was the advantage. Then what happened? Within 2 days of the RTI application being filed, it reached the health center in Jantral, and believe it or not, the health worker, the Asha health worker, started visiting Boru thrice a week. She went from door to door asking, has anybody fallen ill? Is anybody in the family suffering from illness? What medicines do you want? Is it fever? Is it cough? Is it cold? Is anybody suffering from blood pressure problems? Diabetes, distributed medicines. Things were improved. Everybody should have been happy. But we had taught Ghulam Bhai that this will not be enough. Expect an improvement in services, but do not give up on your RTI application, because you have a you have a right to get a response to your RTI application. Whatever information you ask should also be given in addition to the automatic improvement of services. So then Ghulam Bhai knew that after 30 days, he can file a first appeal, but he's a very patient man, like many of our citizens in the country. He said, I'm not going to file an appeal. I will just send them a reminder. He again sent it by post. He said, look, I have filed an RTI application with you. The law says you're supposed to give me a response within 30 days. No response has come. So I'm sending you a reminder to give me the information that I have asked for. Then what happened? Believe it or not, the doctor who's in charge of the primary health center came all the way to Ghulam Bhai's house. He visited his house. Now in a small village, in places like Gujarat, where you still have feudal relationships, patriarchy is still dominant. When a government official comes to your house, it's like a big thing. It's literally like, messenger of God has visited your house. Ghulam Bhai's family was absolutely, overjoyed. Oh, we finally, they've never had a government official visiting their house ever. And that too somebody of the level of a doctor or primary health center. So they did a lot of hospitality, gave him tea, biscuits and everything, gave him a chair to sit down. So after accepting all the hospitality, the first question that the doctor asked him was, Ghulam Bhai, who told you that there is something called RTI Act? How did you find out how to file RTI applications? So that is what was worrying them, that if a remote village resident like Ghulam Bhai can file RTIs using the law, demanding information as a matter of right, then they had better get their act together. So then Ghulam Bhai explained who had taught them about RTIs, procedures and all of that. And he said, sir, you are still duty bound to give me this information. So the doctor said, yes, I will give you the information, but tell me, have the services in your village improved or not? Is it the health worker visiting your village and distributing medicines or not? And Ghulam Bhai said, yes, things have improved. So the doctor said, I will give you information. And he did send the information explaining how many health workers are there, what is their roles and responsibility, how many times are they required to visit Boru, are they supposed to visit door to door? Yes, they were supposed to visit door to door. He all received free of cost because they belong to below the poverty line family. And then onwards, believe it or not, to this day, because there is this fear of people using RTI to demand explanations, the quality of service in this primary health center has not come down. And it is not just Boru. There are 2 or 3 other villages which this primary health center caters to. Even those villages are getting regular, proper services. So that is the impact of RTI. One of my friends who used to be Central Information Commissioner. He is now a faculty member at Bennett University in Noida near Delhi. He says RTI is like a 10 rupee public interest litigation case, 10 rupee PIL. You don't have to go to court to get remedies, to get justice. Very often you file an RTI application attaching a 10 rupee payment instrument, you will get your job done. Not for yourself alone, but for the society. There are innumerable cases. Road repair has not happened for the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Rainy season after rainy season, condition of the road is getting bad. There are potholes everywhere. People are meeting with accidents. So a resident in that area files an RTI application with the Public Works Department and asks, when was the last time you repaired this road? What was the cost of the repair? What kinds of materials were used? Who was the contractor? Give me a copy of the work order given to the contractor. The information will not come immediately, but overnight that road will get repaired. And then when they insist on getting the information also comes. People have used RTI to unearth big ticket corruption, small, petty corruption. They've asked about scholarships not being paid. They've asked about jobs not being given despite being entitled. A whole range of stories. I'll give you another example. There was a lady in Assam who applied for the job of the same Asha health worker 10 years ago. She was eligible. She thought she'll get the job. There was no response at all from the health department. They didn't tell her she was being appointed. They did not even tell her she will be rejected. Nothing. She waited. She used to visit every month or two, go and talk to the doctor in charge of the district, medical officer, chief medical officer, whatever the name is, designation is, and ask what is happening. Why is my application not being acted on? And he would say, no, for some reason. Sometimes he says application has gone missing. And no, we found it. He will say in some other occasion, they'll say we are busy with other things, this, that, some reason or the other, some excuse, and the woman will be sent back empty-handed. Then somebody taught her about RTI, how to ask information, how to demand information. So she drafted an RTI, filed it with the same office and said, this is a copy of my RTI application. I'm attaching it with my application. Can you please tell me what action has been taken on this application? Am I eligible or not eligible? Who are the officers who are supposed to give me a reply whether I will get the job or why I will not get the job? According to your rules, after receiving an application for a job like this, within how many days are you supposed to give a response? Either the appointment letter or a rejection letter. This is all that she asked. Believe you me, what happened? Within 15 days, the appointment letter reached her. She got the appointment letter after 10 years. And then the reply came to the RTI application. In the reply, the doctor said, the DMO said, that sorry, we had sent you this job, recruitment letter 10 years ago, but then it did not get delivered to your address, so it came back to us saying undelivered. Therefore, we were not able to reach you. But now that we have your proper address, we are sending you the appointment letter. Now we don't know how much of it is true, how much of it is not true, but the fact that an RTI application did what she would otherwise have had to do by going to court. There are many Asha health workers who have gone to court saying that their appointments were not made properly, or somebody who was not eligible has been appointed in their place, whereas they should have got the job. There are several such cases in courts, but this lady didn't have to go to court. She just used a 10 rupee RTI application, 10 rupee PIL, and she got her job. So people have used RTI not only for personal grievances, they've used it for public grievances also. Like Ghulam Bhai using one RTI application, and the healthcare system vis-a-vis his village of Boru improves. Not just his village, but the entire primary health center is now required to work according to the rule. Systemic reform is happening. This is how governance improves. How else will you change things? Especially when the members of parliament that you elect, when the legislative assembly members that you elect are all busy trying to find out whether they will become a minister, or which party can they go and join to become a minister, how much money will they get. At the most, what they are interested in doing is they will recommend the transfer of one officer from this office to that office, or they might recommend that your child be put in this school or that school, or they may recommend that you should be given a government job. Nothing more than that. There is very little else that is happening most of the time. I'm not saying all MPs and MLAs are like this, but a large number of them are just doing this. What RTI is helping is, it is helping citizens to become less dependent on these MPs and MLAs, but become self-dependent, self-reliant. And the self-reliance is with regard to engaging with government as a citizen, not as a subject. That is the beauty, that is the power of RTI. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Venkat, for those insights, because they will inspire a lot of us to use the RTI extensively. Maybe we, some of them, one of them had asked chatbot, how do you file RTI? In fact, Venkat had authored along with the CHRI booklet on right to information. We will put it on the chat box for your reference to basically look at the processes and the background and the formats and all that have been given in that for your ready reference. There's a question, Venkat. Have you got the data? What is the percentage of benefits of RTI out of the total 50-55 lakh applications per year in India?
Data is available. Less than 10% of this 50 to 55 lakh RTIs go to the appeal stage. In a large number of cases, people are getting information. It might be late. It might be after filing appeals sometimes, but they do get the information. And they make use of it at the ground level. You just Google RTI success stories, RTI corruption, RTI poor governance, RTI improving governance. You will find story after story after story published in the media about not only success stories of RTI, but also challenges of getting RTI. A lot of them are my stories about how I don't get information. Just today in the Deccan Herald, front page news is about how government denied access to information about a boatload refugees who are Rohingyas. They all sailed out of Bangladesh. Their boat broke down in the Andaman Seas. Our Coast Guard helped them out. In the meantime, 8 people died on the boat. There are several men, women, children. Bangladesh didn't want to take them back. For some strange reason, Government of India also did not allow them to disembark either in the Andamans or anywhere on the mainland. What happened? They had to sail for 3 months across the rough seas to reach Indonesia. Finally, now they are in Indonesia. About 80 of them have survived. They've reached Indonesia. I had asked information, what action was taken by our Coast Guard? What action was taken by our government to help these people? How many men, how many women, how many children? 8 of them are said to have died on the boat. So what did you do with their bodies? What kind of assistance did they give? None of this information is being given. So the beauty of RTI is when you don't get the information, even then media is interested, they will report a story. Why? That builds up pressure on the government to become more transparent. So there are all kinds of benefits. The single biggest benefit is this. In the absence of RTI, at the most, you could write a petition to government and expect to get an answer, or probably resign yourself not to get any reply ever, despite sending reminders. But RTI's biggest benefit is they have to give you a reply within 30 days, either give the information or tell you why information can't be given. And if that does not happen, the law says, and that's the point that I did not mention in my presentation, they can be penalized. They will have to pay a penalty out of their pockets from a minimum of 250 rupees to a maximum of 25,000 rupees per RTI application for not taking your RTI application without good reason, not giving you information within the time limit without good reason, destroying the information that you asked for, obstructing the information that you wanted, but obstructing its release, or giving you false, misleading, or inaccurate information, or misleading information, incomplete information. These are all grounds for imposing penalties. And public information officers are being penalized. People are being made to pay out of their, these officers are being made to pay between 250 to 25,000 rupees out of their pockets for not implementing the RTI properly and responding to RTI applications properly. That is the biggest benefit. Accountability is happening. All that we need to do is use the law. Every time you get a lack of response, or they say, like they told me, no, we can't give you any information about the Rohingya boat refugees. Don't get disheartened. Do your appeals, fight the case all the way up to the commission. Because it costs nothing. You don't have to hire a lawyer. Somebody was asking in the chat box, is it a legal process? No, just like drawing an RTI application on plain paper is a simple common woman's process. Drawing appeals at the first appellate authority or writing appeals to the Information Commission are also simple processes not requiring a lawyer. All that you need to do is take a look at the user guides. Not just CHRIs, there are many available online. Understand the processes, understand the procedures, and go about using them.
Thanks, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Venkat. There's one question which says, can one question back if the reply to RTI says no document exists to bypass the information?
Yes, of course. RTI can be used in a systematic way. It has to be used like that. It can't be a continuing conversation where you get a reply, then you write back something, then they will reply something. No, not like that. If you are not happy with the reply, if they are saying this information is not available with us, you can file a first appeal. That officer will also say, yes, no, this one is saying correctly, there is no information available with us. You can go to the commission. Commission will direct them to give it on affidavit and affirming that they don't have the information. Then, if they falsely affirm on the affidavit that they don't have information, you can drag them to court. There are many such instances. Sometimes files go missing. Files have been destroyed without authorization. In such cases, the police is directed to file an FIR against the missing file to identify who is the person responsible for the file having been destroyed illegally or for the file having gone missing. There are accountability mechanisms. And all of these accountability mechanisms are coming in because citizens are using the law. Not because the law is acting on its own. Many lawyers will tell you the law is an ass. It's like a donkey. Donkeys ordinarily have to be stimulated to move, either verbally or physically. Law is like that. Unless you use it, law is not going to work. Particularly RTI is a law which is simply not going to work unless people start asking information under the law. Only then government will feel pressured. Only then they will feel compelled to respond. So make use of the law as much as possible.
Yeah. Question is, what if information/response is not provided within 30 days after filing RTI? And another one is, what if information/response is not available after filing RTI?
Okay, the first question is very simple. No response. Hi, it happens. So law has a provision. When you don't get a response even for 30 days, automatically you have a right to go and file the appeal. If you go to a government office and say, this is my RTI application, please accept it. This is the 10 rupees, give me a receipt and then give me information within 30 days. And the officer says, go to hell. Very often this also happens, especially when young people go, when women go. They think these are not the kinds of people who should be using RTI. That is their tendency. You come back, you file the first appeal and say, my RTI application was refused to be taken. That is a ground for imposing penalty once the matter reaches the commission. And the second question is, I think, very similar to what I said earlier. If they have, you see, the main requirement in the RTI Act is this: whatever information you are asking should be physically available with them, either in paper files or on computers in the form of electronic digital data or information, or scanned documents, or it should be in the form of audio or visual tapes. Sometimes you can even ask for information which is in material form, like samples. You can ask for samples of food grains being distributed to the ration shop. That is also information. You can ask for samples of materials that are being used in the road construction project. That is also information. So it should be materially available. You can't use RTI to ask, okay, what is the government officer thinking? So long as the thinking has not been recorded on paper or on a computer, it does not become information for the purpose of RTI. Once it is recorded in material form, even if decision has been taken or not, doesn't matter. It is recorded information. You have a right to ask for it. Then decision will have to be taken whether it can be disclosed or not in accordance with the RTI.
Well, an interesting question, how we can take benefits from RTI?
Well, I've given you the stories. The simplest way of taking benefits from RTI is to read your newspapers, your daily newspapers, with what I call an RTI glass. You know, like the kind of glass that I'm wearing. This is the glass that is visible to all of you. But there is another glass behind this glass which I wear. That is the RTI glass. Because every time I read a news item, I look at its RTI potential. What information can I ask about this story from the concerned government agency?
Yeah. So,
like for example, they said, we don't know how much vaccine has gone to which private hospital. Okay, central government may not have the data. I can ask that information from the state health department. So the story is now leading me to ask information about my state. That is the benefit of using RTI.
Although Venkat has answered this question in his presentation, but yet there's a query. Can we use the RTI to ask how the government spends the taxpayers?
Absolutely. If you put in a general question, please tell me, in this financial year, how are you planning to spend the money that we are all paying us in the form of taxes? You could get two kinds of responses. First response could be too vague a question, so we don't have a duty to give you answer. Ask specifically what you want and we will give you. Or if it is an intelligent PIO who is pro-transparency, all that he will do is send you a copy of the budget document or send you the link to the budget document where it is available on the website. Why? Because that budget document will actually tell you how the taxpayers' money will be used on what all things, starting from salaries of government officers down to money spent on developmental projects. It is all listed out there. So that is part of what is called voluntary disclosure. So if you go to the website of the Government of India, Finance Department, Finance Ministry, there is a dedicated website called indiabudget.gov.in. Department-wise, you will get budgets about how much money they have received from various sources, including taxes, and the expenditure budget where they will explain on what all items are they going to spend money in that particular financial year. So you can get for the last 10 years, 12 years, 13 years, no problem. Similarly, your state government's finance department should also have the state budget up on its website. So instead of asking RTI, you can actually get that information directly from the budget documents. And then specific information. Like, for example, I'll give you my own instance. Now, this is a story that I'm planning to write today, and hopefully on Sunday that is going to get published. There is a scheme launched in 2019 called Jal Jeevan Mission. What it basically means is government has now implemented a scheme. It's basically an old scheme, but now they are going to make it universal to provide a functional tap connection for every household in every village and every city, so that people have access to piped water supply. So this February, when the finance minister read out the budget in parliament, that speech and all other budget documents were uploaded on this India government's budget website called indiabudget.gov.in. So one of the documents was information about what was promised by the finance minister in the previous year's budget. So in that document, what is recorded is, according to previous year's promise, what all achievements have happened in that particular year. So Jal Jeevan Mission was also explained. So in that, there was data available saying that so many districts have become 100% Jal Jeevan districts, which means that every household in that district has received a tap water connection, which is functional. And then so many blocks have become Jal Jeevan blocks, 100% coverage. So many gram panchayats, 100% coverage. So many villages in those gram panchayats, 100% coverage. And so many habitats, small settlements. So I filed an RTI application saying, you have given aggregate data, macro level data. Can you give me breakups, names of districts, names of blocks, names of gram panchayats, names of villages, names of habitats? I didn't ask this information for myself. What will I do with it? But this is information according to Section 4 of the RTI Act, which should be accessible to everybody as part of voluntary disclosure. It's a requirement in law. So I said, please put all this information on your dedicated website for Jal Jeevan Mission, because I can't find it there. I checked the website, it was not there. So I said, please put it there and send me the URL. So within 30 days, how did the public information officer respond? He said, this information is not available with us, because this Jal Jeevan Mission is being implemented in collaboration with state governments, which is true. So you go to the state governments and collect the information from them individually. That was his response. Now I'm not going to sit quiet. Why? Because I know that common sense says, if the finance minister has total number of districts, total number of blocks, total number of villages, total number of panchayats, it means the total would have been based on individual, district details, individual block details. So it is only that disaggregate information which can be used to make the totals. So I put this argument and said, you have to have this information, without which finance minister will not be able to give the totals. So information is available with you. Then I also said, you are supposed to, because this is a welfare program that is being implemented, you have a duty to make this information available online on your website. Then I waited. Ordinarily, that appeal should take not more than 45 days to We decided. No response for 2 months, no response for 3 months. Pandemic had happened. Second phase of lockdown had happened. So I was patient. Normally, I don't send reminders, but this time I sent a reminder. I said, this appeal of mine is pending with you. So can you please decide this case and tell me whether I will get the information or not? Very next day, the public information officer sends me an email, because post offices are not functional adequately, no? So they are sending everything now on email. First sentence is, we are very sorry for the inconvenience caused. This is deeply regretted. All the information that you are asking is now available on this dedicated Jal Jeevan Mission website. If you are unhappy with this, you can go to the Information Commission, Central Information Commission. This is the address. That was the response. So I went to the website and I checked all the information which was not available there earlier, which I had asked for formally in my RTI to be put up, is now actually available. So one RTI application, without me having to go to court, just 10 rupees, has actually compelled the government, which initially said, we don't have this information, which was wrong. It is a false reply, is now actually available. If you don't believe me, just go to the Jal Jeevan Mission website. Just Googling Jal Jeevan Mission dashboard and you will see district-wise. We know today that Telangana is 100% covered. Goa also has some blocks and some gram panchayats which are 100% covered. So go and check it for yourself. I'll stop you.
Yeah, how do we deal if the answer that has to be with the PRO of the concerned authority and RTI answer is info not available and first appellate authority decides in favor of the PRO during the appeal hearing?
Okay, first of all, the PRO is not a person who will be dealing with your RTI application. It is the PIO, Public Information Officer. So you file your appeal against the reply of the Public Information Officer, or if that fellow does not send a reply at all. So if the appellate authority also says the same thing, then you go on second appeal to the Information Commission. So Commission will call both of them and ask them to confirm in writing. And that will not be easy for them. Just the way they tell you we don't have the information, when they go to the Commission, they will have to give it an affidavit, which means they will have to swear that what they are telling is the truth. Very often that is when the truth comes out. If they really don't have the information, they will say that. But if they have the information, but they've simply not been able to give it to you because they were too lazy to go and look for it, they will hunt for that information and they will give it to you. There are many such cases where I was told no information is available. Ministry said so. Concerned agency also said so. Ministry was saying that agency has the information. The agency was saying no, ministry has the information. I waited for 2 years. Finally, in the Information Commission, the agency had to accept that they have the information. And they gave me the information after that. 2-year wait. But it was worth it.
Yeah, is it any adverse impact on recent amendment made by the center on the issue of appointment?
Yeah, good question. All that has been amended is the power of the government to decide for how many years information commissioners will be appointed across the country and what salaries they will be paid. That is all that has been amended. No detrimental effect on scope of RTI, definition of information, time limits, fee rules, all of that have remained untouched. Only thing is, because of the rules that the government will make, central government will make, now they determine for how long will commissioners serve and what will be their salaries in terms of conditions. That's slightly problematic because it affects the functional autonomy of the information commissions. Other than that, your RTI is intact. Go ahead and use it. Even those kinds of commissioners who are appointed under the new rules are compelled to give good decisions, so long as you argue your appeal case very, properly and effectively.
Can we file a RTI on the judgment of the court?
Well, the judgment itself contains a lot of information, but if your concern is about how to implement that judgment, what the government has done to implement the judgment, you can. I'll give you an example. Last year, it's an ongoing case in the Supreme Court. What is the case about? Dolphy and Megha will be able to tell you much more about this. When you go to a police station as an accused or as a suspect in some crime, there is no guarantee that you will be safe and you will be treated well with dignity. 4 out of 5 cases, you might get beaten up. What is called custodial violence, custodial torture. A lot of such cases happen. Goa is also no exception to this. So what did the Supreme Court say? They said every police station must install CCTV cameras in every room in the police station. even in the common places where people walk around, or even in the toilet, in front of the police station, back of the police station, everywhere CCTV cameras have to be set up. And CCTV camera footage must be preserved for at least 18 months. It's not just you set up the camera and nobody is making the effort to record the images. So this is a judgment. You can certainly give a reference to the judgment, file an RTI with the state police headquarters in Goa and ask them, what action have you taken to implement the directions of the Supreme Court in this judgment? And they will have to give you a response.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So there are some delay tactics that are
What is
being
the-
used by the PIO.
Father, 1 minute. Father, 1
Yeah.
minute. What is the security for those filing RTI?
Well, you yourselves can be your security. Don't expect the police to come and give you security. How do you find security for yourselves? If you think that some information that you want to ask, in public interest, it could lead to harm to you, then don't file the RTI application alone. There are two ways of doing it. Get all your friends to file similar RTI applications. They can come and threaten one person. They can come and beat up 2 people. Can they beat up 10 people? No, they can't. This is one way. We've all tried it. Another way is to put the names of all 10 of your friends in the same RTI application and ask that information. It has the same effect. This is permissible. Nowhere does it say one RTI application should have only one person's name and signature. No, 10 people can sign, 10 people can put their name, and you only have to pay 10 rupees. You don't have to pay 10 into 10, 100 rupees. No, that's not required. So same effect. They can't come and beat up 10 people. All that you have to say is, out of the 10 people, who will be responsible for paying the photocopy charges and collecting the information? That is all. That is your security. Third way of security, you don't feel confident about being safe after filing this RTI, don't file it. Right to life is more important than right to information. Ask your friend to do it, who might be more confident. Ask an RTI activist to do it.
Thanks.
These are ways of asking for it.
Yeah, thanks. Father Bolmax, you had a query.
Yeah, so I was asking, there is a delay tactic that is being used by the PIOs many times. As the time, that is 30 days, come to end, just on the last day they send a reply that it is not available or other things.
Yeah.
So the information is available, but the delay tactics are being used by the authority. How do we beat that?
Yes. Well, as an individual, you will always have the appeal procedure available to you. You take that response which came to you on the 30th day, file a first appeal and explain why the response is poor. But at the larger level, institutional level, a good way of doing it is, of dealing with these problems, is to increase the number of trainings that happen in government offices. Get in touch with the Administrative Training Institute in Goa, in Panaji, to conduct more training programs. Inform the Information Commission, not formally through appeals or complaints, but by writing letters to them, saying that, look, these are the kinds of problems that we are facing in these departments. This is the kind of response that comes. It's a delaying tactic. Can you call those seniors in the department and talk to them about the necessity of improving their compliance with RTI Act? Several such things can be done.
Thanks, Venkat. I would request Megha to post the feedback form, and we've also posted on the chat box our email IDs, Venkatesh Naik's, mine, Megha's, and Linus's. So if anything is there, you can always email it to us, and surely we will definitely respond to you. Okay. Father Bolmax and Brendan, any other questions? We don't have any further questions, but anything from the group want to comment or want to say the last few minutes? You could unmute yourself and maybe comment, or you have a query, you can speak. Your comment should be restricted to not more than 1 minute. So please, so that we can wind up in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, Dolphy, I think most of the questions that we have till now have been answered. But yes, as Sir Venkatesh Naik has already mentioned during the presentation, that in-depth training can be considered if people are interested, so I would request those who are attending, the participants, if you are interested in in-depth training or any more sessions on this, please mention it on your feedback form.
Sure, sure.
And then accordingly, if we have sufficient number, then perhaps we could arrange it with CHRI.
Yeah, that would be excellent and fine. So do that in your evaluation forms. We have posted the evaluation feedback form on the chat box. Do complete that. Okay. And Brendan,
can I ask a question?
Yes, Rohit.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just wanted. Can we open a branch of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative in Goa? Because I have faced a writ petition filed by Reserve Bank of India against information submitted to me, and I paid the fee of a cooperative bank inspection report. And then High Court judge, who retired as a Supreme Court Chief Justice, Bobde, passed a nasty order against me not to use the information which was already given to me when the Reserve Bank of India filed a writ petition in the High Court in 2011, and on the pretext saying that the economy of the state of Goa will be affected. Fortunately, today the Supreme Court said you can get any such information from any cooperative bank inspection report. But my question is, you need a support group, because RBI engaged a very senior lawyer, and the court wouldn't listen to me at all. Just went on starting dictating the judgment. Justice Bobde, who retired Chief Justice of India, he was in the Bombay High Court. So can we begin? You need a support system. Can we have a Commonwealth head here?
Well, certainly support systems are absolutely required. I completely understand the necessity of something like that. Now, whether CHRI can open a chapter there is something for our seniors to decide. So I cannot make any commitments on that. But there is something that we can all do. You don't have to formally open up organizations, because there are all kinds of issues about funding and managing them and all of that. Instead, you can have informal support groups. And there are several such support groups across the country. They don't even have to formally group themselves. We can remain in touch with each other on WhatsApp or Signal and emails. So I would be very keen to look at this particular order, because I have read the original order, Jayanti Lal Mistry, and later on reiterated in Girish Mittal. I suppose that's the case that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised that they have Bobde, of course. Now that he's retired, we can certainly be very critical of him. He certainly left much to be desired, although there was a lot of promise when he was appointed to the Supreme Court. But later on, he proved himself to be nastier than his predecessor. And anyway, so what I would request is for you to send us a copy of that particular order. Let me take a look at it, and then let us see how best we can help you out with regard to those matters. Because now with the reiteration of the Jayanti Lal Mistry and Girish Mittal ratio in the latest judgment that has come in January this year, I think all those inspection reports, etc., can be made public, number one. And number two, nothing in the RTI Act actually permits such information to be used publicly, but of course with due regard to personal privacy if such information is involved. However, there is a 81B which says that when a court says this information can't be used, then such information should not be disclosed under RTI. They cannot give you the information and then tell you not to use the information. That is not permissible. So I will need to, before I make any deeper comments or detailed comments on that particular order, I need to read it. What exactly the judge said. So only then I'll be able to advise you on that.
You see, sir, but what the reason was that he passed the order saying it's section 11. Section 11 saying that's a third party report, RBI report, pertaining to cooperative bank where two directors were overdue. They could not contest. Incidentally, that bank, Goa Urban Cooperative Bank, was founded by my late father.
Okay.
You've seen how all cooperative banks are being looted in Goa.
Yes.
So that was my interest. With 2011, very nasty order. It was in a penalty proceedings where the penalty was imposed by the then Information Commissioner on the PIO.
Okay.
They came in as an intervener. They were rejected. It's a big process. It's a big, because they were influential political people involving the former chief minister.
Yeah.
So who had accounts there, and all of congressmen had accounts there. All money laundering was going on there.
Yeah.
So it was involving all politicians. Very big fish involved. Where I was a small, tadpole fighting the big fish. And I realized that unless you have a group to back you, you may have, the law may be right, you may be right legally, but unable to cross the barrier when you have such judges. And the nasty side of him, I've seen myself in the court.
Yeah. No,
Thank
I
you,
completely
sir.
understand. I completely understand. We also have something called the National Campaign for People's Right to Information, where you can easily become a member. I can send you the details later on. And then that is another major support group with lots of members from across the country. Practically every state has membership there. So we can certainly make use of, you can certainly become a member of that platform and then seek to, draw upon there are several experts there. There are retired information commissioners there also in that group. So you can certainly, expect, assistance from there. And they do, it's not a funded organization at all. It's not even an organization. It's just a grouping. It's not even formally registered. But they were the ones who were behind the bringing of the RTI Act, at the national level. So it's possible. But what I would request you is, please share with me all the documents, the RTI application, the responses that came, then what the judge said, all of that, the commission's order, etc., etc. So it would really help in understanding.
On what can I send it to? I'll send you by post.
No, we have
don't waste.
posted the
If you
email
have it all
ID on the
scanned,
box.
if you have it all scanned, send it on email. No, why waste
we have posted the email ID on the chat box. One question is there: how do you approach Central Information Commission? Do you have to go through a lawyer?
Not necessary at all. State Information Commission, Central Information Commission, nowhere lawyers are required. They are not even encouraged. You just have to argue the case yourself, which means you prepare well. You prepare your appeal letter well, and then you present your case well. You don't need lawyers to be hired. You don't have to go all the way to Delhi either from Goa. They will call you to the NIC studio in the district center in whichever district you are living in Goa. I think you have only two districts, no? North and South. So they will call you to the NIC studio there and they will conduct a hearing. If you want, you can hire a lawyer if you can afford it, but it's not compulsory at all. And drafting RTIs, if you look at this user guide, how to draft an application, how to draft a first appeal and a second appeal, they are all explained in it. Templates are given. So you can, and the text of the laws and rules which are currently applicable are also given, except for the 2019 amendment, because the book was published in 2018, amendment came in 2019. So the 19 amendment, you can easily find it online if you Google it.
Can I file an RTI to know if a public servant has a Portuguese passport?
Well, that might actually be treated as a personal information, unfortunately. So you can certainly ask for it, but chances are that you may not get that information unless you're able to show what is the public interest that is going to be served by disclosing that information. So you will have to explain why it is important, because if I'm not mistaken, Goans are permitted to have affiliations with Portugal also, no? So you can, technically speaking, have two passports. So whereas the rest of the country, none of us are permitted that.
Oh no, sorry, sir. That is not provision. Under Indian Citizenship Act, you cannot have dual citizenship.
That is true, but then there is also
that's not permissible. That's illegal.
But Portuguese, there is something I remember, because I had a colleague who is of Portuguese descent, and he was telling me about how you can actually have some, I don't know the law. I'm sorry. Citizenship Act, I completely agree with you. Ordinary people like rest of us living in other parts of the country cannot have two citizenships, but there is something that permits, because you have to mention that in your income tax returns forms as well, as to whether you have a Portuguese affiliation, because I fill it up every year. I know there is some such requirement. So you'll have to check up the law on that.
Yeah, over to Father Balmax and Brendan.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
A link to the feedback form is already shared. Filling and submission of feedback form is mandatory to get the e-certificate, which will be mailed on the registered ID at a later date. Respected Principal, Dr. Maria A.A.R. Fonseca, our most valued invited speaker, moderator, co-moderator, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa, and the entire supporting team, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the speaker for gracing your important work and sharing your insight and expertise with us today. Thank you for answering questions raised in this session. We had a lot to learn. A big thank you to Mr. Venkatesh Naik. You gave us a tool which can help any type of revolution to bring about a change. Thank you, sir. Further, we are grateful to Mr. Dolphy D'Souza, Mrs. Megha Gupta, and Mr. Ajit Mishra for facilitating smooth rollout of this webinar. We are grateful to Mr. Linus de Lima for being instrumental and inspirational in getting us connected with CHRI. I also wish to express my gratitude to management of St. Joseph Vaz Educational Society, Father Jesus Rodriguez, and Administrator Father Walter Dessa for providing support and encouragement in organizing this webinar. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Maria A.A.R. Fonseca, Principal of St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa, and Father Polmex Fidelis Pereira, Assistant Professor in Botany at St. Joseph Vaz College, Kottalim, Goa. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative for the perfect support extended to all of us in making this webinar a success. Well, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye for the details. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. Thank you, everyone. Also, thank you to everyone who joined us for today's webinar. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye and happy Goa Revolution Day.
Thank you all, and take care.